Hello, Elwood residents. This is Superintendent of Schools Ken Bossert. I wanted to give a video update today to explain some issues regarding COVID-19 that have impacted our district. You will receive a letter from me today, if you haven't already, that we have a second positive case with a student at Boyd Intermediate. The case on Monday was a 5th grade student. The case today that was reported yesterday is a 3rd grade student. We were fortunate to receive that information yesterday, so the students impacted and the faculty impacted did not report to school today, and obviously we were able to take our cleaning practices yesterday and have that 24-hour period of cleanliness within the room. All the individuals that needed to be notified have been notified directly, so if you did not hear from school officials, your child was not directly impacted, nor were you. That said, it's clear that there's been an uptick in cases in Suffolk County. For those of you that follow the infection rate closely, you'll know it's increased about 400% since Halloween. We are near 4% of an infection rate, having hovered right around 1% for a good period of time. The explanation for that uptick, perhaps it was Halloween activities, perhaps it's because we're entering the cold and flu season, but it's certainly not something unique to Elwood, Suffolk County, and we see what's happening in New York. I'm sure you are familiar with the actions the governor has taken to try to curtail that increase. Because we've had a number of positive cases here, our staffing has been greatly impacted. We are fortunate to have an exceptional virtual model in place for when students need to quarantine, so that we can flip the switch and the virtual learning will take place right away. I was so pleased on Monday, and I have to give credit to Mrs. Riley, the teacher who was impacted. 5th grade class was notified in the morning that there was a positive case in the classroom. The child's doing well, by the way, and that's our primary concern, is the health and safety of our children. The class made their transition to virtual the same day. They were in Boyd in their classroom Monday morning, received this information. Close and proximate contacts were identified, sent home. And by 12:30 that day, Mrs. Riley was engaged in a Google Meets with her class, and the virtual learning had begun and has continued since that time. Our ability to transition from live instruction to virtual is really what's making instruction during the global pandemic possible. While we've had a limited number of cases with students, unfortunately, we've had a number of cases with staff. Now let me explain that. We haven't had a large number of staff members. In fact, we've had very, very few staff members, faculty, staff, administrators who have tested positive. What we have had is close contacts. People who are employees of the Elwood School District have been close contacts to individuals who have tested positive for COVID-19 and therefore are subject to quarantine and cannot attend work. Many of them have been able to work virtually. A number of our faculty, a very large percentage of our employees can make a transition to working remotely, and they have done that. When someone is a close contact and required to quarantine, typically they are on home assignment doing their job from home. And many of our individuals are able to do that effectively, certainly not all. We have some groups that simply can't work from home, our custodial crew, some of our paraprofessionals, the home assignment there is not as effective. But for our instructional staff, we're fortunate in that ability to transition. But there need to be enough adults, substitute teachers, teacher assistants, paraprofessionals in the classroom supervising the children. And we're getting very thin there. Although there have only been a small number of cases among students, because of the impact on our staff, we are having some difficulties. We are keeping our fingers in the holes in the dam and are concerned that it may burst. But we are doing our best to make sure that our instructional program moves forward in the best way possible. Not all of it is ideal. We know there are concerns about students who are subject to quarantine having to enter the virtual classes at the elementary level. We know that's somewhat disruptive. We know it's not as aligned and as fluid as it could be, but there's not an alternative right now. The hybrid model at the secondary level is a bit more seamless because the students are able to be in and out. But I don't think any elementary parents would favor a transition to a hybrid model at the elementary school at this point. As a matter of fact, next week we'll be bringing back the 6th grade to full-time. It's important to note that Suffolk County continues to report that COVID-19 is not spreading in public schools because of the wearing of the masks and the barriers and distancing that we've been able to put in place, and so many of the other precautions, hand hygiene and others that we've employed. COVID-19 is not spreading in public schools in Suffolk County and certainly not in Elwood. However, people are coming in contact with those who are COVID positive outside of the school. So they are subject to quarantine, and then their close contacts become subject to quarantine. Yesterday, I received a lengthy correspondence from the Suffolk County Department of Health. I'm placing it on the website for your reference so you can have the same information that I have. But what it says is two things. The Department of Health is a bit overwhelmed right now with the rise in increased cases. So their human resources are spread very thin. They're contact tracers, and they're folks that help us to determine those in need of quarantine. So they've made some changes. Number one, we are really kind of in a position to use their guidance to identify close contacts and notify them of who those people are. So we need to be very, very certain about that. So seating charts and using our cameras and things like that, bus attendants, those are all put in place to know who is where at what time. The other piece is they've changed their guidance regarding proximate contacts. We were originally directed by the Department of Health that if you're a proximate contact, which means more than 6 feet, but present in the same airspace, so to speak, or short durations of contact with a positive case, you were subject to quarantine as well as a proximate contact. That is no longer the guidance. So that's good news. That means students and faculty members who are not close contacts within 6 feet, more than 10 minutes of a positive case will not be subject to quarantine. That's good. That's a relief. That's one of the things that needed to change for us to be able to continue to operate. Because even the singular case at Boyd with a 5th grader on Monday, 33 students were subject to quarantine and 8 faculty staff members. Most of those were proximate contacts. So we will continue to partner with the Department of Health, but there's a good likelihood that some of those children and faculty members will be able to return, perhaps as soon as Monday, rather than the full 14 days. And when in examining today's case, we will only have to direct the quarantine after our contact tracing is complete of close contacts, not proximate contacts. So that's good news for those involved, and it's good news for the Elwood School District because it helps us to keep in operations without falling short of appropriate coverage in the classroom. Now, let me be clear. Is it ideal instructionally? It is not. And it's very hard for me to say that our instructional program is our secondary concern right now. Keeping everyone healthy and safe is our first and our primary. It's always been 1 and 1A, but the divide is a little greater right now. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep everyone healthy and safe. And unfortunately, some of the modifications we've had to make to our instructional program to do that are not ideal. There are some continuity issues. There's some fluidity of placement that is not what we typically do. But this is anything but a typical year, and we truly appreciate everyone understanding that. We've received so much positive feedback from parents who have just taken a moment to drop a line to say, thank you for your efforts. We really appreciate the great job everyone is doing. Just demonstrates the community's understanding that this is a difficult process. So please read the letter that's on the website. Please read the letter that I sent via school messenger email today, talking about today's case, and just know we're doing our best. You know, some schools are taking some actions that I'm not sure I understand. There have been a small number of school districts that have announced they're going to close the week after Thanksgiving. Everything I've learned about the virus, everything we've all learned about the virus is the 2-week period of risk. So closing for 1 week, I'm not sure of the science behind that. I don't want to second guess my colleagues in other places, but I understand the science of that. And the rumors that swirled about being closed through January 1st, again, unless you're going to close through January 14th, what's the science? Rumors of schools closing through February break. All of that is rumors. I can tell you I'm very active in the Suffolk County Council of School Superintendents, and there has been no such discussion. As a matter of fact, the Suffolk SUP's president, Dr. Bossert, who works out in Santa Mariches, received a call from the governor's office to say, what are you thinking down there in Suffolk? And the Suffolk president had to inform the governor that, no, please don't read everything you read on Facebook. There's been no such widespread discussion. What individual districts need to do to respond to the cases they've had is up to them. And certainly there have been districts who have had large numbers of positive cases and have needed to close buildings. one out of, an abundance of caution, but also because they're running short on staff. They simply don't have enough teachers and staff members to appropriately supervise the children and deliver instruction in any meaningful way. So that's the reason for closure. But to do it voluntarily, I don't understand. So we won't be doing that, to be very, very clear. If we are to close in an individual building or as a district, it will be because of that we've become a yellow zone. And I explained that in the letter, how we just don't have the capacity to test, nor can we require you to test your children in order for them to attend school. And the other one is by the governor's executive order. The decision to close schools for the remainder of last spring came from the governor. I was unfortunately not consulted in that matter. So the governor does withhold the executive authority to close schools at any time as he sees fit. So he will tell us we're closed. Becoming a yellow zone will force us to close. It means the infection rate in our region has reached a point where the Department of Health has found it to be unmanageable, but we're hoping not to get there. Those would be the reasons we close. A lack of staffing would be a reason to close. And we're so thankful that our faculty and staff members, our administration are doing everything they can do to keep our schools open. And it has been sacrificing time with their own families, any planned travel. No one's going anywhere. We're very relieved that our staff really understands the challenges we are facing, and they're doing everything they can to support our students. And our community has done the same, and we appreciate that. So, staying away from large social gatherings and parties and travel is going to be difficult as the holidays approach, but it's the sacrifice we all have to make right now. And we appreciate your cooperation. We can only stay open when the community is fully supportive of our desire to do that. So we thank you for all your support thus far and have no doubt that that will continue. That is the message for today. Please continue to use the website to look at the information we post. All the correspondences that come home from me are archived there. And any information that I receive that I think is of interest to you, I post there as well. The Department of Health letter will be of interest to you because it explains that change to the quarantine protocol that I just shared. So for those that are home right now quarantining with their children, expect that you may get some additional guidance from us for return to school, perhaps as soon as Monday. And I think that's good news. That's all for today. Elwood, please stay healthy, please stay safe. We do have a board meeting tonight. We look forward to honoring a group of students. Obviously, it's a small group as our attendance at board meetings is still limited to 50. But if you would like to keep up to date on everything being discussed between the administration and the Board of Education, please log in tonight at 7:30. All of our meetings are live streamed on the website. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a great upcoming weekend, and please stay healthy.